Hey, what's up guys, OSJ here with the next Amiga software house, and this one's a biggie. Ocean was a household name back in the 80s and 90s, and they had a massive catalogue of great games on the Amiga. They were formed during the 8-bit boom of the 80s, and unlike a lot of other software houses, comfortably moved to the 16-bit systems, producing some of their best games on the Amiga. As with the C64 video, due to the vast amount of games released, I have chosen what I would say are the best 20 games and I've put them in order of greatness. So let's start with PGA European Tour in 20th position. This, as you will see, is a golf game, so maybe not one for all, but as I've been golfing since I was 7-year-old, it's one that I loved. I used to play a leaderboard before I played this game, but after one go I never went back to that. The graphics, while now looking basic, were great at the time, but the bulk of this game is in the gameplay, which is still actually great today. Next in 19th place is Batman the Movie. This is a great movie based game that looks a lot more polished than the C64. Unfortunately I don't feel it plays or sounds as good though, but it's still worth a play just for the Batmobile stage, which is much better than the 8-bits. Eighteenth place is taken by Head Over Heels, another one that was on the C64 list, and another one that while still being good isn't as good as the C64. That doesn't take away that it's still a great game and looks really nice with solid colour. Puzznic takes 17th position, and this, as with a C64 version, is a very good puzzle game that has you really thinking in the higher levels. This game is very addictive, and if you like puzzle games, it's definitely one that will pass a few hours before getting boring. In 16th position is A-Train. This is a kind of mashup of Railroad Tycoon and SimCity. If you are into either of those games you will love this, as it has the best of both games in it. The game is slow though to be able to afford stuff and takes a while to build up your money, but invest some time in it and you will be rewarded. Fifteenth place is taken by F29 Retaliator. The Amiga had a few combat sims and this was a good game. This was Ocean's first flight simulator and was developed a year after Electronic Arts' F18 Interceptor. While it's not as good as that game, it's still worth a play if you're into this type of game. As you would expect though, there's a vast amount of controls to master, so maybe not for the casual gamer. Midnight Resistance takes 14th place. This conversion of the arcade game is a solid platform shooter. It isn't quite as good as the C64 though if you ask me, as it falls down in the music department. Oh, and one more thing, the darkness that you see in this video is the actual game, and it's one that when you played it you had to adjust the brightness of your monitor, which really wound me up. In 13th position is Robocop 3. This was a new concept in the Robocop franchise, and it's one that worked really well on the Amiga. It uses mouse control which works perfectly, and this was, in fact it still is a brilliant game to play even today, although as far as 3D first person games go, it looks a little outdated. In 12th place is Mr. Nutz, Hoppin Mad. Mr. Nutz was made as a direct competitor to Sonic and Mario by Ocean. Sadly, mainly down to how massive those two franchises were, this never quite took off. The game has great looks and sound, but the level design and overall gameplay didn't live up to what we would expect from Sonic and Mario. Plotting takes 11th position. Brilliant conversion of the arcade game here. It's another puzzle game that is a lot like Puzznic. It's also a lot of fun to play, but where it really shines is in the 2-player mode, which makes this a game that you will play quite a lot with your friends. In 10th place is Alien Breed 3D, Doom-style version of the Alien Breed franchise, and one that wins no awards for graphics, which are quite poor. Luckily, it more makes up for that in the gameplay, which while not being on par with Doom, is still a good game to play on the Amiga. Ninth position is taken by the Newzealand Story. As I said in the C64 video, this was never my kind of game, but this is an awesome arcade conversion. The graphics are great, and so is the music, although it does start to grate after a while. To be honest, I think this is a game that nostalgia plays a big part in, as it was massive back in the day. If you never played it, then maybe you wouldn't like it now. The Lost Patrol takes 8th place. This is a war strategy game that made it onto my list of Amiga's hardest games. Difficulty aside, it's a great looking game that sort of reminds me of the CinemaWare games in presentation style, and we all know how good those games were. Anyway, the gameplay is slow and can be repetitive, but ultimately this is a rewarding game to play if you're into this genre. In 7th place is Toki, another massive arcade conversion here, and it's one that I actually like more than the arcade version due to the quirky add-ins that Amiga devs seem to add to their games. The playability is on another level, and the graphics, while obviously not being as good as the arcade, are pretty impressive for the Amiga. Sixth position is taken by Rainbow Islands. This list is littered with arcade conversions, and what a good job they did with this one. It's almost arcade perfect, barring some missing levels, and one that sits comfortably in the best arcade conversions on the system. WizzKid takes 5th place. This is a truly weird game that people will either love or hate. If you don't get it, then you will not like it. But if you open your mind and just enjoy the ridiculousness and the gameplay, then it will be one of your favourites too. This is maybe the game I expect to get the most comments about not belonging on this list, but I like it. In 4th position is Parasol Stars. This is the sequel to Rainbow Islands, and the devs didn't disappoint after that brilliant first game. This takes everything good from Rainbow Islands and mixes it with a bit of Bubble Bobble, which was the original game in the series. It's a perfect mashup of the two games, and while not being as good as Bubble Bobble, it's still a great game to play. Third place is taken by Snow Bros. This is another arcade conversion, and a few people will be thinking, hold on, I never had Snow Bros on the Amiga, and that's because it was never released. The reason for this is still not known, but as a guess I would say the lack of 2-player mode would have been a big part in it. Anyway, this was dug out and released unofficially in 2006 and shows how good the system was at arcade conversions, barring the obvious omission of the 2-player mode. Pushover takes second place. This is a unique puzzle game that for me I spent so much time on as a kid. It really has you thinking in a bid to knock over all the dominoes in sequence. If you are looking for a fun game with a lot of longevity, then this game is for you. And now in first place is maybe the best arcade conversion ever on the system, and that's Pang. This is another one that I would actually say is better than the arcade that it is converted from. The 2-player mode is one of the most fun experiences you will ever have on the Amiga, and is one that me and my son often still play today. Okay, that's it for me. Let me know in the comments below what your favourite Amiga Ocean games were. And if you haven't already, please like this video and subscribe to my channel if you like my stuff. Till next time, this is OSG, signing out.